Hi everyone, this session is about engineering courses and PR pathways. Let me start with introducing our presenters. Ms. Tianni Tran is the Director of International Recruitment NSW, Aussizz Group. Tianni comes with a wealth of experience in the international education sector. She has played key roles in student services and administering courses to international students in the US and in Australia. An expert in understanding student aspirations and aligning their interests with the right course choice, Tianni has decades of experience in shaping successful student careers. Joining the lead panel is Mr. Vaibhav Patel, Director of Aussizz Group Sydney and Registered Migration Agent, one of the most established migration agents in Sydney area. Mr. Vaibhav is an expert in general skill migration visas and handling skill assessment requirements for a broad spectrum of engineering occupations. Having helped countless migrants settle in Australia, Mr. Vaibhav is a trailblazer in immigration consulting. So this session is being recorded. We may take a few questions at the end of the session, but if you need your questions answered in a personalized way, please tune into our dedicated Q&A session at the end of today from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Our experts will be waiting to take your questions. Now I'll hand it over to Tianni to start the session.
Thanks, Gum. I'll just quickly share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, let's get started. There's a lot to cover with engineering, so we'll get started. So engineering is a dynamic pursuit of very diverse fields. Choosing the right one can be quite daunting. So in this educational webinar, you will learn about the various engineering courses, disciplines, tuition fees, requirements, scholarships, potential earnings depending on the chosen career, accredited courses, and of course, pathway careers with engineering. So did you know that established software engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers are paid upwards of $115,000 annually? That many core engineering occupations is also being part of the medium and long-term strategic skills list, the occupation demand list based on which PR is granted. Engineering is about taking science and design and building solutions for real-world problems. There are so many problems to choose from, including climate changes, water quality, efficient autonomous vehicles, renewable energy, plastics pollution, life-saving medical devices, secure communications, and exploring space, to name a few. No matter what the problem is, an engineer will be there to solve it. So let's run through some of the disciplines. Civil engineering is a professional engineering discipline that deals with design, construction, maintenance, and physical and natural built environment. It also includes public works such as roads, bridges, canals, dams, airports, sewage systems, pipelines, structural components of buildings and railways. Mechanical engineering is one of the broadest engineering disciplines. Mechanical engineering designed, develop, build, and test. They deal with everything that moves from components of machines to the human body. Software engineering combines the skills of engineering with the power of computer technology, learn engineering principles and programming languages to build software products for robots or driverless vehicles, design apps, develop computer games, and run network control systems. If you're interested in electrical engineering, is concerned with large-scale electrical systems, including renewable power generation and electrical motors. Electronic engineering focuses on low-voltage systems such as computer systems, communication networks, and integrated circuits. Together, they are crucial for next-generation applications such as autonomous vehicles, space technology, smart cities, and a low-carbon economy. Telecommunication engineering deals with large-scale data networks such as the internet and other devices and systems that represent, store, and transmit analog and digital information. This includes data transformations, equipment, customer access technology, analog and digital radio, television systems, satellite communications, global navigation, mobile communications, and remote sensing. Mining engineering is all about extracting minerals from the earth in a safe and efficient and responsible way. Globally, many industries rely on supply of commodity products by mining, such as minerals and metals. Petroleum engineering works in a range of industrial sectors, often related to explorations, mining, productions, delivery, and downstream processing of fossil fuels. Now, a lot of students are asking about where can they study regionally for engineering. Let's consider regional Australia. If you're considering regional Australia for pathway residency, now you can take advantage of over 1,000 regional scholarships on offer by the Australian government. Furthermore, students studying in regional areas with a graduate visa will benefit of up to 4 years of post-working rights upon graduation. So where can students study? Back in November 2019, the government made changes to classify regional areas as any area that's not Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane. Cities like the Gold Coast, Perth, Canberra, Newcastle, Wollongong are also considered regional, and provides international and options to gain up to additional 5 points by studying in the regional area. So let's go through to name just a few. New South Wales, Charles Sturt University has regional campuses in Albany, Wodonga, Bathurst, Wagga Wagga and Orange. Other institutions in New South Wales offer destination scholarships such as SAE Institute, TAFE New South Wales, the University New England and the University of Wollongong. Victoria, Federation University has a strong network of regional campuses, including Ballarat, Gippsland and Wimmera. In Western Australia, Curtin University in Kalgoorlie has a strong focus in engineering science with a new laboratory. Also in the Northern Territory, you can look at Charles Darwin University, and they have 4 campuses where you can explore exciting courses in engineering. Tasmania, there's 3 locations in Burnie, Hobart and Lanchester, preparing students for the workforce, offering exciting options for STEM. Regional scholarships, up to $15,000 per year with a maximum of 4 years. Let's run through some of the courses. So Civil Geotechnology Engineering, Scots College, Macquarie, University of Tasmania, EIT and Edith Cowan University, Flinders University offer Advanced Diploma in Civil Engineering Constructions. The 2 years program, $24,000. Bachelor of Engineering Civil is about $39,800 annually. You can study the Masters of Engineering Civil for $32,600. Tuition fees then range from between $14,000 to $39,000 annually, and prospective career opportunity up to $120,000 annually. Mechanical Engineering, Bachelor of Engineering Honours with the specialisations in Mechanical Engineering is a 4-year program. You're looking at $39,800 per year, Macquarie University, or you can study the Bachelor of Science, specialising in Mechanical Engineering at EIT. Bachelor of Engineering Mechanical with Honours is a 4 years program, $31,500. Potential earnings here is around $71,000 to $110,000 per year. If you're a senior mechanical engineer, you're looking at about $128,800. And with somebody with more than 20 years experience, $142,300. Software engineering, you can study this at Macquarie, University of Newcastle, Flinders and UTS. So Bachelor of Engineering Software, Masters of Engineering Software, Science and Software. The tuition fee is $34,000 to $39,000 per year. Potential earning is $130,000 career opportunity. Electrical engineering, you can study this at the University of Adelaide, University of Newcastle, Macquarie, Flinders, Tasmania and EIT. Bachelor of Engineering, specialising in Electrical and Electronics. Masters of Engineering Science, Electrical and Electronics. The tuition fee ranges between $39,000 to $44,000 per year. Salary of $110,000 annually. So Telecommunication Engineer, you can study at the Melbourne Institute of Technology, TAFE New South Wales, Leeds College, and of course the University of Wollongong. Advanced Diploma in Telecommunication Network, the Bachelor of Engineering Technology, specialising in telecommunications. Or if you're interested in the Masters, you can do the Masters of Engineering and Telecommunications. And the tuition fee ranges from $14,000 to $31,000 per year. Mining Engineering, you can study the Bachelor of Engineering Mining, Curtin University, Federation University, University of Adelaide, and of course University of New South Wales offers the Masters of Engineering Technology, majoring in mining engineering. The tuition fee is around $29,000 to $44,000. Your potential earning is up to $150K per year. It's also available in the University of Wollongong. Petroleum Engineering, the Bachelor of Engineering, Petroleum Engineering is available. You can study at ECU, University of Queensland, Curtin University, the University of Adelaide, University of New South Wales. Offers also the Masters of Engineering Science in Petroleum Engineering. The tuition fee ranges between $31,000 to $45,000 annually, and with the salary potentials of $120K per year. So let's look at some of the entry requirements. For an advanced diploma, applicants will need to have completed Year 12 or equivalent. In terms of English language proficiency, you need an IELTS of 5.5 with no bands less than 5.0. For the Bachelors of Degrees, applicants will need to complete Year 12. Various universities will recognise a foundation program. They will also recognise a 2 to 3 years diploma, advanced diploma or an associate degree. Or if you complete at least 1 year at a university that is recognised. In terms of English level, IELTS 6.0 with no bands less than 5.5. For the master's degree, applicants will need to complete a 3 years Australian bachelor's equivalent. Some programs will require to have some work experience, so you may need to provide a reference or a statement from the employer. And of course, English level is 6.5 with no bands less than 6.0 or equivalent. So it can be also PTE, for example. So in terms of professional recognition and accreditation, many of the providers mentioned today offer engineering programs that is recognised and accredited by Engineers Australia. So if you want to know more about Engineers Australia, you can visit the website www.engineersaustralia.org.au. Graduates of the program are eligible for graduate memberships of Engineering Australia at the engineering technologist level, Sydney Accord. Australia is one of the 7 founding signatories of the Sydney Accord, and graduates of the degree is recognised internationally under this accord. The Sydney Accord was signed in June 2001 by 7 founding signatories representing countries like Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, Ireland, New Zealand, UK, and South Africa. So let's talk about scholarships. We're interested in scholarships. In July 2021, there's plenty out there. I'm just going to name a few. So if you're studying at the University of Tasmania, they have the Tasmanian International Scholarship, 25% reduction in registered tuition fees for the duration of the course. Of course, T's and C's does apply. Curtin University, 20% STEM scholarship for the first year. They also offer 25% merit-based scholarships. T's and C applies. ECU, there's a 30% STEM scholarships for offshore online students. So don't wait for the boards to open. Get online and start with this wonderful 30% scholarship. And for onshore students, there's a 20% scholarship reductions for the overall tuitions for the whole duration of the program. EIT, they are offering International Excellence Scholarship, which is a 20% reductions on your overall course tuition fees. So the T's and C's do apply, 70% in your HSC or Year 12 or undergrad, and MIT is offering a 10% reduction scholarship. So you can see here a lot of the courses I mentioned today are on the priority migration skill occupation list. That concludes my conclusions for engineering and the education section. I'd like now to hand over to Vaibhav, and he will talk about the PR pathways with engineering careers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tianni, for passing on. So if you can close your presentation, I can start mine.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Tianni, once again. So welcome, everyone. My name is Vaibhav. I'm a registered migration agent at Aussizz Group, as well as a director and a principal migration agent for New South Wales. So today we are going to discuss further about, in addition to the education programs, we are going to discuss about how this engineering courses leads to a permanent visa as well. So as mentioned by Tianni in her presentation, that studying in a regional area does bring in additional advantages. And I will include those ones in my presentation as well. So now in engineering, generally, there are few options to apply for a permanent visa under the skill category, which is subclass 189, subclass 190, and subclass 491. Now, the major difference between these three visas are that the 189 is a skill independent visa, which is generally you need to lodge your EOI expression of interest and your rank based on your points. Whereas 190 is a state nominated visa, so you need to meet the state nomination criteria and apply for a state nomination with particular state once you meet the criteria, and then get the nomination from that particular state or territory. But 189 and 190 both are a permanent visa. The only difference is when you take a 190 visa nomination from the state, you actually commit to them that you will live and work there for 2 years after your visa is granted. But that's more of your obligation. The visa condition is nil. Subclass 491 visa is again a state nominated visa, but it's a regional state nomination. So, and this visa allows you to get up to 5 years visa, and then you have to live in a regional area further for 3 years and work 3 years and earn minimum 53,900 each year to qualify for an 191 visa, which is an actual permanent visa. And once you obtain the 191 after 3 years, then you can move anywhere in Australia. Now moving forward, I've already covered this slide as well, where I've shown the difference. Now, another difference that we can see in the slide is that 189, your occupation has to be on medium and long-term skill occupation list. Whereas for 190 and 491 state nomination, your occupation can be on a medium and long-term list, can be on a short-term skill occupation list for 190. For 491, it can be on any of these three lists: medium and long-term skill list, short-term skill list, and regional occupation list. So it actually broadens up your options too. And as I said, this is the difference between these three visas, that 189 is a permanent visa, 190 is also a permanent visa with a commitment to live in that particular state for at least 2 years. Whereas 491 is a 5 years visa with the condition that you have to live and work in a regional Australia. Again, you don't have to live in that particular state. Your commitment is to live in that particular state, but then if you are not able to get a job, or if you're not able to settle down in a longer run, you can move between regional areas. And after 3 years of living and working in a regional area, you can apply for a 191 visa. The requirement for 191 is that you have to live and work in a regional area for 3 years while holding a 491 visa, and your annual income for those 3 years must be minimum 53,900. Now the skills assessment. So the first step to apply for any of these three visas after you complete your course is to obtain a skills assessment. Now, as mentioned by Tianni, that a lot of courses that if you study in Australia, then those are covered by Engineers Australia in accredited course list. And if they are accredited, then you do not even have to worry about going through a lengthy process of a CDR report, which we will cover in the next slide. Now, in the skills assessment, generally there are three types of occupation category. Number one is the professional engineers, for people who have completed bachelor's degree for 4 years in engineering field. Applicants who have 3 or 4 years in Bachelor's of Technology generally qualifies for engineering technologist occupation. And there are other occupations such as civil engineering draft person, mechanical engineering draft persons, which falls under engineering associates, where you need to have advanced diploma or associate degree in engineering with at least 2 years of study in it. And the English language requirement for this skills assessment application is IELTS equivalent to 6 in each, which is competent English, or PTE 50 in each, or equivalent score in other tests like TOEFL. Or if the applicant has completed undergraduate degree in Australia, they can get a waiver of the English language requirement. Or if you have completed 2 years of study at master's level, then you can also get an exemption for your English language requirement. Also, if PhD graduates can also request for an exemption for English, or if you hold a passport from certain country like USA, UK, Canada, then also you can get an exemption for English language requirement. Now, what are the occupations that are covered under engineering by Engineers Australia? So aeronautical engineer, agriculture engineer, obviously I'm not going to cover all of these occupations right now because as you can see on the screen, the reason is because we want to save time so that we can take a few questions. I can see some questions through the messages already. So these are the occupations that falls under engineering occupations, and these are all assessed by Engineers Australia. Now, as I mentioned, professional engineers will need to have a bachelor's degree for at least 4 years, whereas engineering technologists will need to have 3 to 4 years of bachelor's of technology, and last few 6 to 7 occupations, which are civil engineering draft person, electrical engineering draft person, electronics engineering draft persons, mechanical engineering draft persons, telecommunication field engineer, network planner, or telecommunication technical officers falls under the associate occupation. So basically the applicants just have to have a diploma at least for 2 years. Now, there are a few pathways that the Engineers Australia will assess you based on. So number one is an accredited pathway. So if your qualification is accredited by Engineers Australia, or it's under Washington Accord if it is from overseas, or Sydney Accord or Dublin Accord. And if your qualification is accredited under this accord, you do not have to worry. Simply apply for your skills assessment with your degree and passport and your resume and English language requirement, obviously. Whereas if you have a non-accredited qualification, you have to write down a competency demonstration report, which is you have to write down 3 projects in the CDR report and write a summary statement and CPD statement outlining your projects and how did you keep yourself up to date with the CPD statement. That how did you keep up with the knowledge in your field while you were not studying or while you were not working. Of the state nomination options for different states. So like we'll start from the New South Wales, basically because I'm based in Sydney. So now engineers occupation for 190 right now, which are civil engineering draft person, civil engineering technician, electrical engineering draft person, electrical engineering technician, engineering manager, civil engineer, geotechnical engineer, structural engineer, industrial engineers, transport engineer, mechanical engineer, production and plant engineer, aeronautical engineer, biomedical engineer, and engineering professional NEC. These are covered for subclass 190, whereas if you see the regional nominations, industrial engineer, mechanical engineer, production or plant engineer, civil engineers are generally given a higher priority for a regional one. But if you are working in your field in the regional New South Wales, you might get some exemptions that I will discuss in the next few slides. 190 visa, how it works is simply you need to have a positive skills assessment, have your occupation on the list for 190 visa, and you need to apply for an EOI through the Skill Select website. Now, NSW will then conduct an invitation round maybe every month, or depends on, because there's no specific timelines that they give, but they conduct invitation round from time to time. When they conduct that invitation round, they rank people based on their occupation, then further down by their points, then the English language ability, as well as number of years of experience. Combination of these factors determines whether you're selected by the state or not. Whereas in the 491 visa, in the regional nomination, your occupation has to be on the relevant Regional Development Australia's list. So there are around 7 to 9 regions where your occupation has to be on that particular region where you're intending to apply. And in the stream 1, the requirement is that you have to be living and working in the regional New South Wales for at least 12 months in your nominated occupation. So you have to be working in your field. Whereas for the stream 2, if you have completed study in New South Wales by living and working within the last 24 months, so you must have completed 2 years of Australian study in regional New South Wales. So this is an advantage, as Tianni mentioned in her presentation, that if you study in a regional area in Australia, then you get not only you're getting a scholarship, but also you're getting an option to get a 491 nomination as a by default option from New South Wales. Or you can, if you study in Sydney, let's say, for example, if you're not able to get 190 nomination or 189 visa, then you can also move to regional New South Wales and live and work in your nominated occupation and then apply for a nomination. Now, the requirement right now is 12 months, but then we have seen that many applicants who completes 3 to 6 months of experience and they apply for a nomination and many times they have been granted the nomination even before they complete the 12 months. So that's also some flexibility given by the NSW state. Now, the next state is Victoria. So applicants who have been living and working in Victoria, they can also apply for a nomination. However, Victoria's current status says that it's closed for this current financial year. Obviously, in the new financial year, they will announce new criteria, or they might make some changes. But the last known criteria from Victoria were that for subclass 190 visa, your occupation has to be on the list on the department's medium and long-term skill list or short-term skill list, and you have to be living and working in Victoria for at least 6 months in your nominated occupation. Now, it doesn't say whether full-time or part-time, so technically it means that you can work full-time. If you have full-time work rights, you can work part-time if you have part-time work right. Now, for the subclass 491 nomination, the last known criteria is that your occupation has to be on the list for subclass 491 visa from the department's list, and you must be working 3 months. It doesn't say full-time. I'm sorry, I think my slide has an error. So it doesn't have a full-time work requirement. It says 3 months work requirement, basically. So it doesn't have to be full-time. It can be even part-time. Now, this is all from Victoria. So, and after you complete your requirement, you need to lodge an ROI, which is a registration of expression of interest. And then Victoria will nominate you, send you a pre-invite to apply for a Victoria state nomination. And then you provide your documents and everything to prove that you have met the criteria, and then the Victoria will nominate you for either 190 or 491, depending on which criteria you have met. Moving forward, South Australia. So South Australia has an occupation list, and you need to search your occupation on that particular list. If your occupation appears there, it will have, each occupation has a different criteria. Now, it can be like civil engineer has a different criteria and mechanical engineer has a different criteria, because for each occupation, they have a separate criteria. Now, the basic requirement for 190 is your occupation has to be on the 190 list, number one. You must meet the additional work experience requirement for that particular occupation. Now, with the work experience requirement as well, they have two options. Either, let's say, for example, for a civil engineer, they might have a criteria that, okay, if you live and work in Adelaide, you have to have 12 months of work experience. But if you are living outer regional South Australia, then that work experience requirement goes down to 6 months for 190 visa. It's just an example, not an accurate criteria, but I'm just trying to show how they apply criteria on each occupation. So generally, what we suggest is, look in the state nomination criteria for particular occupation from South Australia. They would have mentioned that for your particular occupation, you have to, if you're working in South Australia in Adelaide, you have to have certain number of years, number of months of experience. If you're working in outer South Australia, generally it goes by 50%. So generally, if you have 12 months of work experience requirement in Adelaide, if you go to outer South Australia, it's generally 6 months. So it goes, your work experience requirement is reduced by 50% if you're living and working in regional South Australia. Most of the engineering occupations have 12 to 18 months of work experience requirement in Greater Adelaide, or 6 months of work experience requirement in outer South regional area, South Australia's regional area. For a 491 visa, generally your occupation has to be again on the list for a South Australia state nomination list. You must meet the work experience requirement. Again, each occupation has a different requirement. Most of the engineering occupations have minimum 6 to 12 months of work experience from Greater Adelaide, or 6 months of work experience in outer regional South Australia. So if you're working in outer regional South Australia, your work experience goes down by 50%. South Australian graduate pathway. So if you study in South Australia, minimum 1 year of course at a level of your occupation. So if you have, let's say, if you're nominating occupation in civil engineering draft person, your qualification has to be at least a diploma level or higher. And if you're, let's say, nominating your occupation as a mechanical engineer, your qualification that you gained in South Australia must be at least bachelor's or higher. And then you will have additional work experience requirement. Generally, the most of the time, if you have studied in South Australia, the work experience requirement is 3 months in your nominated occupation. But again, it changes from occupation to occupation. Now moving forward from Tasmania. So the Tasmania state nomination criteria is very simple. For 190 visa, if you've studied and lived there in South Australia for 2 years, So if you complete 2 years of study in in Tasmania, then you can get a state nomination for 190 right after you complete the 190 2 years of study and they will nominate you for subclass 190 visa. Or your occupation has to be on a TSOL for subclass 190 visa, and you have to work 6 months full time in your nominated occupation to qualify for a 190 nomination. Now, right now, what are the occupation available on TSOL from engineering field is mechanical engineer, civil engineer, geotechnical engineer, structural engineer, transport engineer, electrical engineer, and production or plant engineer. So if your occupation is on the list, and if you have not studied in Tasmania for 2 years, but if you have a full-time work rights and if you can move there and find a job in your field, you can work 6 months full-time in your field and apply for a nomination. Now, also keep in mind that if you go there and work there for 6 months full-time, if Tasmania's state nomination authority is not happy with your work experience, or let's say maybe the company's size of the company, they might offer you a 491 even though you met the criteria for a subclass 190 nomination. That goes on case-by-case basis by the state. But if you've studied 2 years, generally we haven't seen anybody finding trouble in getting the state nomination from Tasmania for 190 visa after 2 years study. Whereas for a subclass 491 visa, now they have few options. So option number 1, you study 1 year by living and studying in Tasmania for 12 months. Now, generally they prefer, obviously they will accept all the courses, but generally they prefer certain occupations or certain courses like a diploma in childcare, diploma in health services, or aged care. Those courses are prioritized. To just give an example that, people who studied, let's say, diploma in leadership and management, some of them have got negative outcomes from 491 from Tasmania for subclass 491 nomination, because Tasmania doesn't really want those kind of applicants. But the applicants who have, let's say, even have the most critical occupations like accountants, where there are less invitations being sent, but people who have studied, let's say, aged care or child care or community care are given the state nomination because they have studied something which is in demand in Tasmania. Or option number 2, where you have to work 6 months full time in any skilled occupation. Now, skilled occupation means could be any job. Like, say, for example, I had a client who is a mechanical engineer but was working as a cook for certain years in Sydney, and then moved to Tasmania and then went there and worked there for 6 months full time as a cook, and then got the state nomination from Tasmania as a mechanical engineer. So the nominated occupation was a mechanical engineer, 6 months full-time work was as a chef or as a cook, and then we still got the nomination from Tasmania because Tasmania again is prioritizing hospitality occupations right now. So if you are working in hospitality and if your nominated occupation is anything, even engineering or any other occupation as well, you can apply for a state nomination from Tasmania. Or if you have a family, so the next option, third option you have is if you have a family who is living in Tasmania for at least 12 months, and your close family member must be your parent, brother, sisters, child, uncle, aunt, or grandparents. And they must be an Australian citizen or PR, and they must be living in Tasmania for at least 12 months. And you can be outside of Tasmania as well, that's fine. You can apply for a state nomination. Your occupation could be any of the occupation from the entire list for 491 visa. As long as you have a family member living there, they will nominate you for the 491 visa. And the last and fourth option is a small business owner. So if you go to Tasmania and establish a completely new business, so they do not accept going and buying and purchasing existing business. They want you to go and establish and operate a new business in Tasmania for at least 6 months. Now, this business could be anything. It could be, let's say, a pizza shop or a grocery store, or hairdressing salon or nail paint salon. Could be anything. That's fine, as long as you establish a new business and run that business for 6 months and show that you're likely to be able to earn at least 53,600, which is the minimum requirement for a 491 visa and holders to qualify for 191. So if you can show that your business can earn that much in a year's time, so in 6 months time, I would say, let's say divided by 2, so which is $27,000 roughly. So if you can show that in 6 months time, you've generated a profit of $27,000 roughly, then you can justify that, yes, your business is operating in Tasmania, and you have established this business as a new business. You did not purchase the business. You can rent the place, that's fine. Renting of the business premises is not an issue as long as you have established a new business. And you can also show that you're generating employment if you are employing people in Tasmania, so that increases your chances of getting a nomination. But as long as you established a new business, run that business for 6 months, and show that you can earn minimum $53,900 each year, which is $27,000 per 6 months, then you can get a nomination from Tasmania for a 491 visa under this small business owner category as well. Now, the next option is Western Australia for subclass 190 visa. Now, for engineering occupation, Western Australia is really good in terms of finding an employment, career, etc. as well. Not only for studies, because obviously the universities are really good because there are a lot of options in Western Australia to study. Also, the state nomination criteria is very easy if you study in Western Australia. And also the job perspectives are much better because there are a lot of mining industry, so they require mechanical engineers and mining engineers, production plant engineers as well. So there are a lot of opportunities in engineering field in Western Australia, so if you do choose to study there. Now, for a 190 visa, they require your occupation to be on the list. You need to meet the minimum requirement for English, which is generally a proficient English for engineers, which is IELTS 7 in each or PT 65 in each, or equivalent score in TOEFL or CAE or OET. You must have at least 1 year of Australian work experience or 3 years of overseas experience to be eligible for this nomination. And you must have at least 12 months of full-time employment contract in the nominated occupation from Western Australian employer. Now, this is if you did not study there. So your occupation has to be on the general skill occupation list for 190. But if you have studied in Western Australia, then they have a separate list, which is called Western Australian Skill Migration Occupation List for graduate of South Western Australia. And most of the engineering occupations are available on the graduate occupation list. You must have completed 2 years of study in Western Australia, and you must have at least 6 months of work experience or 6 months of employment contract. So even if you don't have the work experience, but you have a job offer with 12 months or 6 months of work in that particular occupation, then you can also get a nomination from Western Australia. So that's very easy to get a nomination from Western Australia if you have studied there. So if you are planning to study 2 years of course or engineering degree, Western Australia is a very good choice. Now, for the subclass 491 nomination, the requirement is that your occupation has to be on the Western Australian Skill Migration Occupation List. You must meet the English language requirement. Again, it's a proficient English, and you must have the work experience as well, 1 year in Australia or overseas 3 years. And you must have 12 months of full-time employment contract to be eligible for a nomination. Or if you have studied in South Australia again, Western Australia again, your occupation has to be on the graduate occupation list. Your engineering occupations most of the engineering occupations are available on the graduate list in Western Australia. You must have completed 2 years of study, and again, you must have the job offer in Western Australia. But obviously, if you do qualify, then you will have to you probably choose to go for a 190 visa. Moving forward, for Northern Territory. Now, Northern Territory also has a very good option for a state nomination if you choose to study there. As you can see for a subclass 190 visa, to qualify for a 190 nomination, you must have completed 2 years of qualification from NT education institution, where generally there is only one university, which is Charles Darwin University. You must have lived for at least 6 months continuously after the date of completion of your last qualification while holding the visa that allows you to work full time. And also you need to demonstrate that you have made a genuine efforts and to obtain employment in NT in your nominated occupation. And you must be working for 6 months during this time. Doesn't have to be in your field, but you need to show that you tried to find a job in your particular occupation. Right. So let's say you can apply for jobs. Let's say apply for online advertisements, that way you can find the job advertisements, apply for it after you complete the course. Obviously, after you complete the course of 2 years in NT, you will be able to qualify for a subclass 485 visa, which is a post-study work visa. So you can get up to 2 to 3 years or 4 years visa, depending on which qualification you complete. And then during the 6 months time, you can work in any field and show that you tried to apply for jobs in your nominated occupation. However, if you're successful, good. If you're not successful, you can show that, see, I was not successful, so that's why I'm working in some ordinary or some not related to my occupation, and I'm still working in Northern Territory though, and demonstrate that you're just working. Maybe you're not working in your field, you're working in McDonald's, or you're working in any odd jobs as well, that's fine. But you just have to show that you're living and working there after you completed the course for at least 6 months with the efforts that you've tried to find a job in your field. Or if you have not studied there, then you must have lived in NT for 2 years to qualify for 190 nomination. You must be working in your nominated occupation for at least 6 months and demonstrate that you have a further employment contract for 12 months for Subclass 190 nomination from Northern Territory. The next option for 491 visa is that you must have completed 2 years of study in NT, option number 1, and you demonstrate that you have made efforts to apply for a 491 nomination, to apply for a job in your field. And people, let's say, who are not able to get a 485 visa, in this case, they can qualify for this because applicants who are on a student visa generally are not considered for a nomination from Northern Territory at all. So you must be on some other visa to qualify for a state nomination from Northern Territory. Now, if you've studied there for 2 years and not working for 6 months full time in any field, that's fine. You just have to show that you have a job and you have made an effort to find a job in your field. And with that only you can apply for the 491 nomination. So if you have used your 485, let's say in this case, who will go for this kind of nomination is people who have qualified or used their 485 visa already, and now they're going to Northern Territory and studying there for 2 years again in any engineering field or any other occupation as well, and they now they're not able to get another 485 visa, so they might get, let's say, employer sponsorship visa or some 408 visa, let's say for now COVID visa, to get a full-time work rights and then apply for a 491 nomination because you can't wait for 6 months. Right, and they won't accept you on a student visa, so you might have to take some other visa to just buy more time and apply for a state nomination for 491. Or applicants who moved before 1st of July 2020, and you have been working in your nominated occupation for at least 6 months, and you have demonstrated that you have been you have an employment in your nominated occupation for another 12 months as well, so you have a job offer which is ongoing job offer for further 12 months. Then you can apply for a state nomination. Or applicants who have started living in NT after 1st of July 2020, they will have to show that they have to be residing in Northern Territory for at least 12 months and working 6 months full-time in their nominated occupation with further 12 months of offer for employment with the same employer or some other employer. Moving forward for Queensland, as of now, Queensland is closed for state nominations for now. But the last known criteria for Subclass 190 visa is your occupation has to be on the Queensland state nomination list for Subclass 190, and you must have 6 months of full-time work experience in your nominated occupation in Queensland. Now, if you don't have a work experience in your field, generally you're not considered for the nomination. For a 491 nomination, the requirement last known criteria right now, as I said, is closed. So the criteria is that your occupation has to be on the list for a 491 visa, which is living and working in Queensland, and you must have 3 months of full-time work experience in Queensland in regional area. Now, they also have options if you study in Queensland, then they have separate options for it. So applicants will complete there, and if their occupation is on the, and if you're a master's graduate, by the way, then you have easy criteria comparatively. And with the job offer itself, you can apply for a state nomination for 190 or 491. You don't have to wait for you to complete 6 months full-time or 3 months full-time work experience for the nomination. Now for Subclass 491 visa, similar to Tasmania state nomination criteria for a business owner, they also have a small business owner category. Now for Queensland, there's a bit difference than Tasmania. So Queensland says that you must hold a skills assessment in any occupation, which is fine. You must have minimum 50 points as well, which is minimum criteria for a 491 visa anyways. But here you can purchase the business worth $100,000, which is running there for at least 2 years in regional Queensland. Now, this business that you're purchasing, must be a value of 100,000 or more. You must invest that much. You must be 100% owner of that business. So you must, whenever you purchase, it cannot be accepted as a partnership business as well. You need to then operate that business for 6 months full time and have at least one Australian employee, which is either Australian citizen or a PR or a New Zealand citizen, eligible New Zealand citizen, working in your business for at least 20 hours per week for 6 months. They don't say for how long, but I would say that you should try and complete that for 6 months itself as well. And you must have the full-time work rights, obviously, because you need to run the business for 6 months full-time. And you need to show a prior business experience. But generally what happens is if you don't have the prior business experience, that's completely fine. Operating the business that you're going to purchase for 6 months meets this criteria. So you don't have to worry much about meeting other criteria as well. You don't have to worry about having the work experience or business experience prior to buying this business. And again, your occupation could be, let's say, engineering occupation. And if you purchase the business in, let's say, any other industry as well, like, as I said, retail stores or grocery store or convenience store, or it could be, let's say, cafe shop, could be any business that you purchase. In Tasmania, you have to establish a new business, whereas in Queensland, you can purchase an existing business, which is running for 2 years. Here, if you establish a new business, they don't accept it again. So you have to show that you have invested $100,000 in the business, which is running there for 2 years already, and you're purchasing the business. The last option for the state nomination is Canberra. Now in Canberra, as of now, on the Canberra's critical occupation list, civil engineer, geotechnical engineer, quantity surveyor, structural engineer, transport engineer, aeronautical engineer, agriculture engineer, biomedical engineer, and environmental engineers are open as of now. Now, for a Canberra state nomination, the requirement for 190 visa is that you must be living in Canberra for 6 months. You must be working in your nominated or any other occupation as well for 6 months. So it doesn't have to be in your field, in your nominated occupation. It could be any job. Now, but this has to be for 6 months continuously. That means, for example, if you work for 3 months for 35 hours per week and 1 week in between, for some reason you do not go to work and you have unpaid leaves and you did not work for minimum 35 hours, and then again you work for 3 months, that does not qualify for 6 months because it is not 6 months continuously full time. So again, if you have any breaks in between where you have made less than 35 hours per week in that particular week, then your 6 months restarts from the next week when you start working 35 hours again. So you need to make sure that you do not have any breaks in between for 6 months continuously until you lodge a matrix, which is again a separate system that I'm going to explain next. Now, if you're working on ABN, then you must be earning at least $1,000 per week. Like, let's say if you're doing Uber or Uber Eats, your income has to be at least $1,000 per week. As I mentioned, that it doesn't have to be in your, the 6 months work doesn't have to be in your field. But yes, if you work in your nominated occupation, you get extra points in the Canberra matrix. Now, you must have if you are on a, you must have your occupation on the list, or you are sponsored by an employer in ACT who for a subclass 457 visa or a 482 visa, and you have at least 12 months visa left on that particular visa for subclass on 482 and 457. So if your occupation is not on the list, but if you are working, let's say, for example, mechanical engineer is not on the list, but you have a 482 visa and you're working for an employer in ACT, and that employer has sponsored you for 482 visa, then you can apply for a nomination for 190 as well, because your occupation is still considered to be open. And you must have proficient English. All the applicants generally in engineering have to have at least 7 in each in IELTS or PTE equivalent score. And then you have to apply for a Canberra matrix. Now, Canberra matrix has a separate point stream. So let's say, for example, having an occupation open on the list, you get 20 points. Having an job in your field for 6 months, you get extra 20 points. If you are living and working there for 6 months, you get extra 5 points. For English language score, for 7 each, or proficient English, you get 10 points. For superior English, you get 15 points. For living there for 1 year, you get 5 points. Working there for 1 year, you get 10 points instead of 5 points for 6 months. If you have a partner, there is an advantage in Canberra, because if you have a partner who can get superior English, superior or proficient English, they can give you 5 extra points. And if your partner can only get competent English and have at least a bachelor degree or working there for 3 months, then they can give you 5 points. So your partner can give you maximum 10 points. So working there for 3 months and proficient English both can give you 5 each. That means 10 points in total maximum. But if your partner can only get competent English, they can only give you 5 points. So and then after collecting all the points from Canberra Matrix, you lodge in Canberra Matrix EOI and then wait for the invite from Canberra. Once you get an invite from Canberra, you need to collect all your documents that you've claimed, and then so obviously you have to prove all the points that you've claimed and then provide the documents to support that. And then after you apply for a nomination, you can get the nomination for the 190 visa if you're successful. Now for a subclass 491 visa, you must be living for 3 months. I'm sorry, I think this slide has a small slide error. Is 491 visa here. So you must be living for 3 months in Canberra and must be working for at least 20 hours part-time, obviously, for 3 months. And again, it has to be continuous. So that if you have a breaks in between, it restarts from the day you start 20 hours again. But there are some exemptions given in both cases. So if you have a medical condition and if you have a medical certificate for not being able to go to work, you can request for an exemption, but you have to get an approval for that from Canberra government beforehand. If you're working on ABN for a part-time, the requirement is minimum 500 per week. Again, if your occupation engineering occupation is on the critical list, it's fine. If not, if you're on 482 as well, that's fine because your occupation can be considered even if it is not on the critical list. But if your occupation is not on the critical list and if you're not on 482 visa, then you cannot apply for Canberra Matrix at all. You must have a proficient English for engineering occupation. Again, after 3 months, you have to apply for a Canberra Matrix, and then people are ranked based on the points from the Canberra Matrix, and then after that, you get an invite from Canberra to apply for a state nomination. Now, that's all about the state nomination criteria for engineers. For engineering occupations, I would suggest that applicants who are intending to apply should try for different occupations as well. So if you are, let's say, a mechanical engineer, you can also, if you have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, you can apply for a skills assessment in different domains as well. Like, let's say, you can try for a production engineer as well, because sometimes what happens is, applicants have a skills assessment only in mechanical engineer, but engineering technologies is being invited. So always, let's say, for example, mechanical engineer can get a nomination from a skills assessment in different occupations, such as, for example, a mechanical engineer can get a skills assessment as a production engineer, mechanical engineer can get a skills assessment as a engineering technologist. So you can try different occupations, so that what happens is then you can have 3 different EOIs, 3 different applications running at the same time. So if you get selected, not for, let's say, for example, as a mechanical engineer, but you're getting selected for as an engineering technologist, you still stand a chance, or a production engineer. So you have multiple options. Like civil engineer can also apply for an engineering technologist. Civil engineer with 1 year experience can also apply for a skills assessment as a civil engineering draft person. So you can try different occupations and have more assessments. More assessment means more options, and more options means you can have more EOIs that improvises your chances more and more. Now I have a couple of questions that I can take. I have around 7-8 minutes left, so I can take the question from Dennis. Dennis's question is ACT civil engineer at 70 points for a subclass 491 on 190. Which should I go for? I would suggest obviously first try for a 190 visa, because if you don't once you get a 491 nomination from Canberra will not re-invite you for 190. So it's definitely recommended that you try for a 190 first. And then if you think that the cutoff, so obviously every month there is an invitation round from Canberra. So if you see that the invites are not coming through at 70 points, then you have to rework and then see, okay, yes, I'm going to accept the 491 invite. But I would suggest try both, but obviously you'll have to prioritize the 190 as your first priority, because then you can get a permanent visa directly. Now there's another question from Jay. Do we need to write different CDRs for different skills assessments? No, you don't have to write them different CDRs. Like, for example, a civil engineer, you wrote 3 CDR report, 3 project reports. Now the same project reports can be used for engineering technologist assessment. But yes, if you are applying for a completely different domain like structural engineer, then yes, you have to have separate CDR reports for structural engineer, because the project reports that you submitted for a civil engineering and engineering technologist are more related to civil engineer. But when you go for a specific domains like professional engineering occupations, then you have to have CDR reports in that particular or project reports in that particular area. The next question, so you can obviously put in all your questions here in case if you're not able to answer your questions right now. Our team will get back to you with specific answers later on. And also we have a Q&A session tonight in the evening as well, and obviously tomorrow as well. So you can always put questions in the Q&A session as well. Now moving forward, the next question is, if I've been granted the 491 visa, am I still eligible for a 189 or 190? So the question is from Lassan. So no, so you cannot apply for a 189 or 190 visa if you have been already granted the 491. But if you have applied for a 491 and you are on the bridging visa for a 491 visa and you're still waiting for the visa to be finalized, and if you get an invite for 189 and 190, then you can still apply for 189 or 190. But once the visa is granted, you cannot. The next question is from Sai. 189 visa EOI submitted with 90 points, including PTE and NATI in December 2020 under engineering technologist. Will reach 95 points in February 2021. I think you mean 2022. And you are in Perth, currently under TSS visa. You know, it can be expected. Yes, I think you have a very good chances for 189. Also, I would suggest that you should consult our team in Perth to seek advice on 190 nomination from them there as well. However, I think your occupation, because you do not study there, your occupation might not be on the list for a general occupation list for Western Australia. So yes, but then your chances of 189 is very high. If you see the last invitation round from Department of Home Affairs for 189, there were engineering technologists who were invited, but I would also suggest you to try for different occupations. Let's say you can try for, a professional engineer. You can try for engineering professional NEC. So you should try for more assessments to improvise your chances. Now moving forward, next question from Bhargav, mechanical engineering in Queensland, 190. Do I need a job offer only or experience as well? So if you studied there, so as I mentioned in my presentation, there are a few options they have. So if you've studied there for a master's degree or something or higher, then you can apply for a job with job offer. But if you have not studied in Queensland, then you need to work 6 months full time in your nominated occupation before they can nominate you. The next question is from Avinash. So what are the chances for materials engineer at 75 points for 189? Honestly, 75 points is very low because as of now, we have seen most of the candidates having more than 90 points or 85 points at least. So I would suggest you need to try and work on your points. If not, then consider the state nomination options from the slide that I mentioned before. Now, the next question is from Rahul. Is it possible to get a PR in engineering occupation with less than 1 year of work experience, either in 189 visa? But if it is overseas, as you mentioned that overseas, I think with overseas candidates, it's kind of tough right now because the department is not inviting people with the overseas locations, so your chances would obviously reduce as compared to somebody who is in Australia. But then yes, if you're onshore, then better chances but then that doesn't mean that you should not lodge an EOI because this is current situation. These situations can change anytime in future. Once the borders are open, COVID is under control, then the department will start inviting people. So obviously you should lodge an EOI, keep updating your EOI from time to time. The more experience you have, keep adding those experiences as well so that your chances of getting an invite goes higher. Now the next question is from Nick. Can engineering technologists be accepted in any other occupation? It depends on the qualification as well. So Nick, if you have 4 years of degree, then you can certainly apply for another professional engineer. It depends on your CDR report as well, quality of your projects, complexity of your projects in engineering profession. So if you're, generally if you have a 4 years degree, but if you don't have, if you don't have, let's say, if you don't have your project reports very complex, or if you don't have a good project reports, then they might still give you an engineering technologist. They might not give you a professional engineer. So it really depends on how many years of degree you have and what is the profession, and whether there is any particular occupation or professional engineering occupation that we have on the engineers Australia list. If yes, then you can definitely try with a stronger and complex project reports. The next question is from Prachi. That will be last question that we can take because we have a time limit until 2. Can we get a skills assessment from mechanical engineering, mechanical technologist, ET to mechanical engineering based on the experience? How much experience is required? So Prachi, I guess you will be applying under a CDR pathway, and if you are working in your field, then you can use your work experience or any projects that you've done during your work experience as a project report, and then write a projects based on that one and apply for a skills assessment as in professional engineer, as a mechanical engineer, right? But yes, you still have to have a 4 years of engineering degree. So if you do have the engineering degree for 4 years, definitely you can apply for a skills assessment in mechanical engineering using your work experience. Now, there is no specific requirement of number of years of experience because there is no particular requirement from the Engineers Australia that you have to have certain number of years of experience to qualify that project as a part of your CDI report. As long as you've worked on the project, you can justify, you have a work reference letter from the company, no issues at all. And you can use all of your 3 projects career episodes based on work, or you can combine them, like one could be from education, one could be from internship, one could be from work experience, or 2 could be from work experience, one could be from education or academic project that you've done during your studies. So there are different combinations you can definitely try. And we are getting a lot of questions from the viewers, and I'm really sorry, but because we are already at 2 o'clock, we have to shut this. But we will certainly get back to your questions in one-to-one. And as I said, we have a Q&A session in the evening, so you can register for that one and ask your questions there as well. I will hand it over to Agam again.
Thank you, Vaibhav and Tianni. Thank you so much to our clients for attending this session. Don't forget to leave your review for the session. The link is shared in the chat box. Your feedback is much appreciated. Don't miss out our next info sessions on exciting topics. Join straight away through the links in the chat box. I've already shared them. And thanks again for joining us today. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.